G'day trendsetters, John with Gravel Cyclist. Today I'm making a video about how you can use your cyclocross bike, whether it be new or an older bike such as this Colnago C50 cyclocross bike, as a gravel bike. So on the internet I've spotted a couple of videos, one by a bloke in particular who purports himself as being a gravel expert, yet ironically, I find this kind of funny, this bloke has never ever been spotted at any big name gravel ride or race. So anyway, that point aside, I'm going to talk really quickly about my cyclocross bike setup as I've used at races such as Almanzo 100, Crusher in the Tushar and Gravel Worlds. Inside the case is my Ritchie Breakaway titanium cross bike, or a bike I fondly refer to as my gravel travel bike. But in both instances, these bicycles are fitted with cantilever brakes. Now you are probably thinking, John, what the hell? How can you possibly descend a serious mountain pass using such a brake? Well, with the right brake and right brake pad setup, you totally can do that. Now with that said, these brakes don't offer as much power or modulation as say a disc brake, especially in inclement weather, but they will work just fine if they're set up right. This brake is the Avid Shorty Ultimate. It is one of my favourite cantilever brakes. It has two positions for the arms. One position will set the pads further away from the rim, and the other position will set the pads closer to the rim. Now this is the closer position of the two, and I have this set up for both front and rear of the bike. Yet still there is plenty of room between the brake pad and rim to provide for clearance between obstacles such as mud and crud that may gather on the rim, because you certainly do not want that building up when the wheel is rolling around. The other thing that's nice is it does not have a lot of travel on the brake lever to actually get contact. TRP make a really nice cross top lever. Now it's not something I use on every single bike, but it does provide a nice alternative braking position, which is especially handy on gnarly descents. This Colnago is set up with a 46 big chainring and a 34 tooth small chainring. That's a pretty standard cyclocross type setup, although some guys may run a 36 tooth small chainring, and nowadays you've also got the prevalence of one-by drivetrains, but for new and old cyclocross bikes alike, you can always use something which is a subcompact, which is a 46-34 setup, as on this White Industries crankset, and that's one I reviewed earlier on the gravelcyclist.com website. The cassette on this Colnago cyclocross bike is pretty much optimized for flatter gravel road riding, but that's easily fixed with a cassette like this one here, which is an Ultegra 11-speed, 11-32. That's a very flexible setup, and with a nice spread of gears with not too many heinous gaps. The other issue is tyre clearance. Now, with the case of modern gravel bikes, they're often designed for bigger tyre clearance, but with a traditional cross bike like this Colnago, which actually does have a decent amount of tyre clearance, you're often limited to say a 700 by 35mm tyre. Now I could probably fit a 700 by 40 in there, but I run into the issue of trying to squeeze the tyre between the cantilever brake pads without deflating the tyre, so that's a bit of a pain in the bum. Thus I've kept the 35s on here, but these are the exact tyres, the Panaracer Gravel King SK in 700C by 35 that I ran at the Crusher in the Tushar, Almanzo 100 and Gravel World. So it's sometimes a case of running what you've got. Finally, geometry. Now the geometry of a cross bike versus a gravel bike is a little bit different. Generally with a cross bike it's a little bit twitchier, a little bit tighter, whereas on a gravel bike it's a little bit more relaxed and forgiving for overall comfort and long days in the saddle. Most noticeably, the bottom bracket on a cross bike will be higher, and on a gravel bike it'll be lower. So the lower bottom bracket will lend itself towards more stability, especially if you're descending, say, long gravel descents. The twitchiness is not really a problem. It's just something you have to get comfortable with. You just maybe won't be able to go as fast, but I've seen plenty of guys go very fast on gravel descents riding cyclocross bikes, so don't let that be a detractor. Also, generally, say the angles, like I mentioned, they're more relaxed on a gravel bike, whereas on a cross bike they're going to be little bit tighter, so and again favouring a more twitchier, more responsive ride, whereas a gravel bike more relaxed, a little bit of slower handling. But either way, you can still make it work. In fact, I forgot to mention I raced the Ritchie in a event in Canada called Paris to Ancaster, which is basically a steeplechase type race over 70 kilometres, which really does favour cross bikes, and that's where the twitchier, faster handling of a cross bike really does work very well. So in summary, don't sweat it too much. You can make almost any bike work as a gravel bike. A dedicated gravel bike, a cyclocross bike, or a mountain bike, or even, as I've done in the past, a mountain bike with drop bars. In gravel, there's no rules, so anything goes. It doesn't matter. Just have fun tinkering, experimenting, and more importantly, having fun with your riding or racing. So with that said, thanks for watching Trendsetters. We'll see you in the next video.